today, both in person and online. My name is Ben Levine. I'm a program assistant here at GTI, the Global Taiwan Institute. The Global Taiwan Institute is a 501c3 think tank dedicated to insightful, cutting-edge, and inclusive research on policy issues regarding Taiwan and the world. GTI's mission is to enhance the relationship between Taiwan and other countries, especially the United States, through policy, research, and programs that promote better public understanding about Taiwan and its people. To realize the vision and mission of GTI, our starting line of programs include the Global Taiwan Brief, which is a bi-weekly publication offering expert analysis on issues related to Taiwan policy, US-Taiwan relations, and Taiwan-China ties using primary materials. Public seminars, which are regular events that address Taiwan's role in the broader policy debates with a focus on both traditional and non-traditional issues. And then our annual symposium, which is our flagship program, which is an annual symposium on US-Taiwan policy. We also host a number of podcasts, including GTI Insights, which consists of brief, timely interviews with a wide range of policy experts, including academics, government officials, journalists, and academics. Taiwan Security Review, which explores topics related to Taiwan security, US-Taiwan defense ties, and Taiwan's evolving role in the Indo-Pacific. And finally, Taiwan Salon, our soft power and cultural policy podcast. These programs also include events such as our events today. I'd like to thank the staff and interns for making this event possible, as well as the board and our advisors for their support in our programs. So welcome to Innovating Citizen Engagement, Taiwan Leadership in Civic Technology. The Taiwan Civic Tech community really exemplifies resilience and innovation in the face of unique challenges. Today, we are fortunate enough to have with us experts who have been deeply involved in these efforts and who will share their insights on how technology can strengthen democracy and civil society. Our first speaker, Ipa Chiu. Ipa Chiu is the founder of Zero Taiwan, a civic tech community in Taiwan starting from 2012. She's a writer and documentary director. She has focused on citizen engagement and public participation for the past 12 years within the Zero community, which promotes collaboration through open source culture between civil society and public institutions. She published her second book at the end of 2024, which is about her sociologist's father and intellectual community during Taiwan's democratization process in the 1990s. So Eva, take it away.
It's my time now?
Yeah.
Oh, so is it working? Yeah, just gotta. Yeah. Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here in DC, and thank you for having me to the GTI community to share something about civic tech from Taiwan. And first thing, that's the first thing I'd like to ask the crowd. Have you anyone have heard of Zero community? Oh, so we already have about here. Yeah. Anyone know how it works? How the community works? Raise your hand. Oh, good. Yes, and you know. So that's why I'm here today. So I'm Xu Xiaowei, and I also go by Ita. I'm a co-founder of this community, Zero community, and I'm a writer, and I do some documentary films support. So I'm not a techie person. And I'm a mother of two. The tallest one is me. So it's the tallest one and the yay one. Yay. Because we're a volunteer base, so we have to be volunteer vibrant. So Zero community is pronounced Zero. In Mandarin, it's Jilingdi. It's a volunteer-based community, and it's I'd say it's like a civic incubator that supports citizens to implement their good ideas. And it's powered by open source mechanisms. That means we encourage people to share. That's the key concept in this community. And so today, I'm going to share with you with one story and one message and some observations because we're facing a lot of challenges now for the future. So how do people gather in the streets? That's sunflower movement. So who are there? moment. That's why. Someone was there. Someone was in the crowd. So how do people gather in the streets and ended up with laptops for 12 years? That's what we did. So can crowd on the street can really can work together besides voting, protesting, or sharing, liking on the Facebook or Instagram? What else citizens can do regarding participation? So basically, what GovZero did was to invite facepalm citizens, very angry, very frustrated citizens with, of course, diverse background to hackathons. And some hackers were there with some programming skills and of course with some data. And the group of people start to collaborate and think what can they do together except facepalm. So the hackers are also facepalm. It's a very frustrating time. Maybe it is now. And so first thing, the important key is to set agendas. To set agendas, not just complaining. So what's the outcome of people start to set agendas when the two group of people? So they start to propose innovative solutions to fix bugs in the democratic system. So that's the start of change. It's like 12 years ago. Yeah. At that time, my hair was a little bit blacker. Then we have, there's two examples from various projects. So one is digitizing political finance report with online crowds. They're typing CAPTCHA to fight against black gold politics. The black gold politics, it can go back to the 90s. It's very serious. So there is an academic thesis about this written by an anthropologist, M.G. Lee. You can find this thesis online. And we have CoFact. Wrong? Oh. Yeah. And we have CoFact. It's a fact check that is fighting against disinformation. So, and we have MaskMap, of course, during the pandemics, and the list just go on. So for hacking, or civic hacking is come together, pitch your idea, and bring out your prototype, because prototype is very important to start a new project, a new action, and form a team and start discussing and working with probably strangers. You don't know the person you're talking to, but you can work with them. We have a methodology how to do that with strangers, with community, with this open source licensing. And that is lasting for 12 years until now. And you've been to the hackathon, latest hackathon in July, and we have the next one in, I think, November. It's every 2 to 3 months for 12 years. So with collaboration and agenda setting, that's the previous two elements, successful. But I'm not saying every project is successful, but a successful civic tech project would be scalable engagement. And with more people, with more sectors, open source keep it easier to iterate to better version. It's a software concept. We are working hard to iterate our democracy by adopting technological methodology. So then things can keep evolving. So for example, this is from the previous example. After the digitization of financial reports, the movement has led to concrete changes, not just online. And I think it's 2018, Taiwan amended this political contribution law. So from then on, political contributions had to be published online in open data format. So that is a concrete change because everyone can access the data. It was on paper in a building in one specific computer, and you have to register, print out data, but now it's fine. It can be accessed to anyone. So this year, some data analysis from this report has hit the headlines. You can see some influencer did some digging with the data. So some big things happened this year. So as to COFACT, the COFACT fact check chatbot, so Meiyu, the author is Carol here, utilize the COFACT database with API. So it's all open source, open licensing data, working through APIs or different licensing. So that amplifies the impact on users, I think especially on senior users. Yeah. So also in Thailand, this is Thailand version of COFACT, which is inspired by the original one in Taiwan, has launched in 2019, and also impact on elections in Thailand. So that's the thing we are encouraging by sharing, because the story is just two examples from various initiatives in actions. So the story or the journey is actually about how to build an ecosystem that can grow from centralized to a bit decentralized, and then maybe it can grow into a network. So in this network, because it's open and transparency leads to accountability, we hope that leads to accountability. And it will more likely to have a self-correcting mechanism for democracy. That's the basic concept of the movement. But to point it here. But sometimes I'm always asked, or sometimes asked by international friends, why Taiwan can create this kind of participation. It's a scalable participation model. Is it because we're under constant crisis? We have natural crisis, we have political ones, we have earthquake, typhoon, of course, China. And is it because we're small, so people can come together easily with very diverse backgrounds? I met Ben in Taichung Hackathon, and Taichung is the middle of Taiwan. So, to my surprise, that was the proudest hackathon I've been to, because people from South came as well. Wow! So the density of different backgrounds is crucial to this kind of movement. Is that all these reasons? I think maybe it's all correct, but more than that, looking back to the history, I think we have frequent iteration of democracy is because we have freedom of speech, and that nourishes bottom-up power. And that is because why we have always a chance to change, to iterate. And that is something that distinguishes us from societies of oppressive regimes. But that's the past. We have new challenges. So we worried about jobs taken by AI, or our privacy, or the digital empire, and of course, China. And we are now flooded by disinformation, and the bots are all between us. We cannot tell who are the bots, who are the real person. The civic tech open source optimism still be effective? Don't know. But if today's topic is Taiwan plays a leading role in civic tech, but if that is true, how does the three basic elements of civic tech power mentioned earlier, the three, can guide us? So the methodology of collaboration and the bottom-up intelligence to set agendas, and scalable engagement that brings out impact. we can do this because we're Homo sapiens, because Homo sapiens just do collaborate. And maybe Taiwanese under constant crisis do collaboration even more. And so what these can guide us. I think the message here, no doom or hope, but we can only hope for hope. So the message here is what is new to add to the elements. We need youth participants, and we need international connections, collaborations, and AI is terrifying, but they can be some new tools to use for democracy, for civil society. And it's always easier to destruct it than to construct it, but we still need construct anyway. So I already see some people doing experiments in youth participation, AI use for technology. So I love to see more in the future. So finally, some observations for today. My slides are colorful because I often talk to youth participants. So I have to use colorful slides to attract them. So I will say that nonpartisan citizenship is crucial to society, and civil society matters no matter what. And we need meaningful public conversation like this today. So we need to know how the democracy is formed so we can fix it, so we can protect it using new technology. We need to ask good questions. So humanity studies matter even more in the age of AI. That's for sure. I believe, I hope. And next is critical thinking and collaboration is important. So how to empower high agency people to connect together and to do something, not just talk and complain, to maximizing collective efficiency. Efficiency would be the very important word because we need to be fast in the development of AI, adopting new technologies. It is an overlasting challenging social change. And lastly, democracy is a marathon, but it is also a relay race. Adaptation is key. Innovation leads to iteration, and maybe it can lead us to a better version of democracy. Today I love to hear from you and learn from you, and maybe we can collaborate later from you. So that's my short talk today, and last. This is not for just our generation, it's generation after generation. That's my 2 cents earlier. Oh, with this puppy, with this yeah.
Is that Xi Jinping?
This is my son, yeah. So this talk is also for them as well. Thank you. Some books I enjoyed lately. Maybe we can share for just 1 second. No? Yeah. So one is the Geek Way. So basically, the civic tech community is adopting the Geek Way to emphasize the efficiency of crowd. And the new book from Harari, Nexus, is about linking people from sapient to AI age. So that is something we can learn how we can adopt new technology, the difficult side of doing it. And there's a book coming at the beginning of that next. It's a book about the observer community. It's from Meijing, Li Meijing. So we'll share the information later when it comes out. Yeah, thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethel, for really providing a great introduction to Go to Zero and for really providing again a really comprehensive look at the achievements and challenges that Taiwan civic community has faced. And Your insights on how we can kind of harness new technologies to safeguard democracy are especially relevant in today's really evolving landscape. So now shifting gears a little bit slightly, we're going to hear from Richard Haddock. He's the Assistant Director at the Seeger Center for Asian Studies at the George Washington University. He's also a member of the UC-Berkeley U.S. Taiwan Next Gen Working Group, where he's conducting research projects on the current state and future prospects of Taiwan studies in the United States. He also has held positions at the National Democratic Institute's Asia Team, the American Institute in Taiwan's Public Diplomacy Center, and the U.S. Department of State. Mr. Haddock is currently is currently doing a PhD in public policy and public administration at the George Washington University, focusing on digital democracy and e-governance development in the Asia Pacific. He holds an MA in Asian Studies from the Elliott School with a concentration in domestic politics and foreign policy of East Asia. And he graduated from UCF with a BA in political science and a minors in Asian Studies and diplomacy. So Richard, the time is yours to speak for your presentation.
All right, thanks so much. Thank you everyone for attending today's talk. I'm really humbled and touched to be in the presence of our panelists who are far more qualified than I. So I'm coming at this from someone relatively new to the field and want to provide, it's very helpful for me as well to provide kind of a brief overview of how Taiwan's digital democracy arrived at its current iteration. And I do work at the Seeger Center for Asian Studies. We do a lot of great Taiwan studies, outreach and programming as well. So hopefully we'll do more events like this as well in the future. So the first element I want to distinguish a bit is from the public administration perspective. There's a difference between talking about digital government versus digital democracy. And the programming and initiatives in Taiwan often overlap, share one or both qualities. Digital government, from the research and public admin perspective, is really talking about digitization of public services. This is best illustrated by a government website. You have to download some tax forms or something online. You have to go to local government, federal government, national, and find information that way. So digital government really resonates with the telecommunications infrastructure in place, whereas digital democracy takes a step further, that it's interested in digitization of democratic procedures, creation of new democratic procedures, or really answering the question, how can we use tech tools to widen the scope of who participates in the decision-making process? And I want to talk about four nodes or kind of, in my view, watershed moments in Taiwan's digital democracy that actually have already talked about a lot of these moments as well, and our panelists have participated. The first node I wanted to mention is GovZero and relatedly the Sunflower Movement. So GovZero has hosted hackathons since 2012. It also organizes international hackathons. There's a hackathon series called Face the Ocean that is collaboratively hosted between GovZero, Code for Japan, and Code for Korea, and it is switched the host site every year. And GovZero also supports a lot of projects that are created within hackathon environments that go on to do other related public service-oriented projects. One of them that I wanted to mention is US Taiwan Watch, that at first focused on developing Chinese language materials in Taiwan to analyze US politics and policy, and is now also expanding to try to be something like an academic network or think tank in Taiwan. The Sunflower Movement is a really critical moment, I think, for GovZero and really raising the profile in Taiwan among the public about what civic tech can accomplish. At GovZero, the ability for internet connectivity and digital tools to be created on-site, connecting those inside with those outside, and widening the scope to kind of see governance in action, participation in action, is what some scholars call situated software, this ability for technology to respond to on-the-ground events as they are happening. And so Sunflower Movement, again, was a way for the public to see and recognize that GovZero and then more broadly civic tech tools are able to develop and act on policy actions. And then just a brief note on hackathons, the merging of Hack and Marathon. Not only GovZero hosts many hackathons, but now there's a presidential hackathon series that is kind of the Taiwan government's ability to support and promote projects in the hackathon space to try to develop these creative solutions to public policy problems, inviting the public's participation. The second node I want to talk about is three programs in tandem: V Taiwan, Join, and Talk to Taiwan. So following the Sunflower Movement, the then Minister without Portfolio, Digital Minister Jacqueline Tsai, sought to work with GovZero after seeing what GovZero can do during the Sunflower Movement and generally what Civic Tech can do, to first seek after reverse mentors, or those in the Civic Tech community that can teach, educate public policy officials on tech tools, how to integrate these tech tools in democratic processes. And second, the call to action for GovZero to create a platform for entire society to engage in rational discussion. As Eva mentioned, both the inclusivity of crowdsourcing public policy ideas and the ideal efficiency to push through bills that have been previously deadlocked. The result is V Taiwan, which is an online collaborative platform that uses AI-powered software called Hollis in its current iteration to essentially do clustering of public opinions that can help us first understand the major points of debate of a policy issue, and then find threads of consensus that we can act on and then develop some kind of a legislative action or policy response. And so on one side, there was active involvement from the Civic Tech side, developing ideas and reverse mentoring the government. On the other side, Jacqueline's side was really focused on getting government to respond and interact with these Civic Tech tools. One challenge we'll discuss is sustainability of this joint partnership and the individuals that play a role in making sure that these continue. Some initial successes include creation of Uber, Airbnb regulations through this tool, regulations on online alcohol sales. Several bills that just were deadlocked for years were able to reach legislative action just a matter of months. This was a really high point and optimistic point of digital democracy. What can it mean for Taiwan? Join is a separate platform that is kind of similar to the We the People platform in the US of essentially creating online petitioning tools so that citizens can also present ideas to the Taiwanese government. And the last one that I mentioned here that actually was a bit hard to find information on recently is Talk to Taiwan, which I think now is no longer operating, but it was a talk show in which public officials and scholars live stream discussions and take questions from those watching using the Polis software to be able to sift through, filter through kind of discussion questions that many people have on the mind, and they have to respond right then and there on screen. I believe Ko Jie was one of the guests of this show. Just to give a visual, because I first digging into these topics, I had very little understanding of what these actually look like.
Sure.
But this
is Polis.
Yeah, so this is the Polis, just a screenshot of Polis where we see mappings, clusterings of different positions on policy. And rather than commenting, what you can do is either agree, disagree, pass, or create some kind of a policy statement or opinion on the subject. And so the mapping system happens based on people's reactions, and these clusters of opinions form, and we're able to try to sift through where more people might fall on an issue. How can we develop a rough consensus? Maybe not something that's precisely what everyone would like, but what most people can at least agree on. The next node I want to cover or bring up is the COVID-19 pandemic and the digital responses to that. At that time, the digital minister of that portfolio, Audrey Tang, talked about a social sector solution. So avoiding two other models at the time, one that is private sector oriented digital solutions to the pandemic, and other is government driven. Instead, what Audrey Tong wanted to pursue is a social sector solution. I kind of think of it as encouraging public-private partnerships, or essentially civic tech and civil society grounded and led, that is government collaboration. So there are three systems I wanted to mention. One of them is COVAX, actually, which we've had previously mentioned. One is the 1922 SMS contact tracing system that because Taiwan did not have a strong independent privacy data protection regime, a big question of how do we protect anonymity, especially in the context of Taiwan's own authoritarian history and political behaviors. How can we conduct contact tracing for public health concern while respecting individual privacy? And the result of that project is the contact tracing system that uses texting. There is also a mask app developed, both by GovZero projects to map the availability of masks around Taiwan. And lastly, to address the infodemic, or the proliferation of mis and disinformation during the pandemic, COVAX was created as a means to crowdsource counter disinformation efforts, so that the kind of using humor over rumor and being able to use citizens' own ability to distinguish mis and disinformation, and using the COVAX chatbot to essentially try to address misinformation more quickly than what professionally trained fact checkers might be able to accomplish on their own. So the sense of getting everyone involved, it is a social effort, a whole of society effort. These are some of the digital tools that came out from that. And the fourth note I want to bring up is the creation of the Ministry of Digital Affairs in 2022, which for me and from a public administration perspective is exciting, because it's the institutionalization, the culmination of these civil society driven efforts that manifest in some public official or public government form. There are a few initiatives that I highlight here. One of them that really catches my attention is the Participation Officers Program. For governments all around the world, addressing these kind of technical tools to deepen democracy often runs into culture issues, bureaucratic culture issues, or rules regulation issues. So essentially, how can 21st, 22nd century technology or concerns square up with 20th century and older government institutions? Participation Officers was one program meant to change or transform this from the ground up, where there would be an officer placed in each ministry to receive training on how to use tech tools to embed public participation within each government ministry. Whether or not that has, how visible it is another issue. I feel like it's a great idea in practice, and there have been meetings between these participation officers and members of the public in smaller forums, but it's still something that I'm trying to track myself and see the results, if there's any transformative result in each ministry because of this program. There are a number of challenges, though, that the ministry has already faced, and I'll just, in the interest of time, highlight one personal anecdote that every time I've asked my friends and colleagues who are in the civic tech or civil society space, I enthusiastically ask from my view, how's MODA doing? What kind of projects are you working on? And there's just a common refrain of, well, when we find out, we'll let you know. And so just the kind of organizational issues of new ministry, defining its scope, with digital affairs being so intersectional, sometimes it's difficult to pinpoint, well, what exactly is MODA responsible for? Is it supposed to be handling the kind of text fraud cases, or privacy issues, health and data privacy issues? Or is it strictly focused on creating these public participation tools? If it intersects with justice, with foreign affairs, who does what? So there's still, I think, kind of a public and members of the public and misunderstanding or not clear understanding of what's MODA's goals, objectives, scope of work. And so it's also difficult to see the efforts that MODA might be doing, because it's, again, obscured by not really clear understanding of how it is governed or fits into the Taiwan's current bureaucratic context. So I just want to end on a few challenges and new frontiers, many of which actually Eva also mentioned. As anthropologist John Postel talks about, formal politics is the most arduous frontier for quote unquote tech pol nerds, technical political nerds, or I think of it as a civic tech community at large. So transforming from assembly democracy, social movement democracy, meeting in public spaces, being very energized, talking and acknowledging public issues, and the energy to transform it. Turning from that assembly democracy to institutionalized democracy to digital democracy, participatory democracy, that's always been a challenge for civic tech groups all around the world. And it is no different in Taiwan's case. The issue with getting sustained government and political support, that political principles are invested in these processes and want to integrate, embed these processes in their decision-making process. It is still not very consistent. Taiwan, after initial successes, from what I could read and understand, by 2017, 2018, was already starting to stall out a bit in terms of the scope of policies, regulations that government officials are comfortable working with that is passed on the platform. It's also an intensely volunteer resource-driven endeavor. GovZero, as the largest civic tech collective in East Asia, so much of it is how much of our personal time, passion, efforts can take us versus pursuing careers in government or careers in the private sector space. So there's, in public administration thought, there's this idea of the governance network, which I see Taiwan's digital democracy a great example of, but it requires heavy resourcing, public side, private side, civil society side. If there's not equal or equitable attention to either of these sides, then the governance network will experience these kinds of sustainability problems. And the last one I want to touch on is the democracy deficit, which scholars think of as the scalability problem. So we have these technological tools, but we have to ask ourselves who ends up participating more often, and are the interests of whole of society truly represented based on those who are working on these tools directly? So how scalable then are these decisions to then create a whole of society approach where we get closer to direct democracy? Taiwan at its peak reached about 200,000 users, which is quite a lot, substantial, but that's also only 1% of Taiwan's population. Is that really representative, or can we deepen the amount of or percentage of individuals that can participate in these decisions? So as for some new frontiers that I'm watching, I also see the kind of scaling up or application of new AI machine learning tools to analyze these policy debates. Polis and now a newer iteration, Talk to the City, is using these machine learning tools to take public policy debates to kind of new analytical directions. And I also am encouraged to see Taiwan engage more in the international space and really lean on digital democracy as a means to engage with more communities and actors from around the world, including the Face the Ocean hackathon I mentioned earlier. So just to end on a visual, this is the one of the latest Talk to the City AI tool groupings of these kind of policy positions. This question is basically, what do you think about AI? Is it trustworthy? How should we use AI? And so similarly to Polis, it's these clustering of opinions in order to find some kind of common thread. And for those interested, I do just list a few references, one of which is M.G. Lee's great paper on the campaign finance crowdsourcing information. So if you're interested, you can look further, and I'll be also reading actively. So that's the major points I wanted to bring up. So thanks again for listening, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Richard, for really that great presentation on the evolution, history, and future of Taiwan's democracy. Looking at Polis, GovZero, GovBacks, Beats1, and really the role of civic tech in navigating these governance challenges, COVID, disinformation, pushing for different regulation, among other challenges. So our next speaker is Carol Hsu, who is currently a senior software engineer at Oyster. Before her position at Oyster, she worked as a product manager and engineering manager at Global. In this position, she led the development of the line fact checking bot, Auntie Meiyu. Auntie Meiyu helps hundreds of thousands of Taiwanese discern between true and false information online. She's also pursuing her MBA at the Simon Business School at the University of Rochester. So Carol, the floor is yours.
Thanks for having me here today. Yeah, based on like those two topics already, actually, I feel there's a lot of overlapping from mine. So I'm Carol, and my previous project is Meiyu. So Meiyu, I could call it is kind of like a byproduct of Codex. So, right. So my topic today is trying to share how Civic Tech can help combat disinformation as a closer observation from Mary's angle here. And also I would like to share the role and its public and the private partnership to being as a solution to defense all the disinformation. Oh.
Hi, I don't know if the clicker is working. Could you just tell me which?
Okay, I will say next page. This is this page. Yes, next page. Yeah, so I want to start directly from the impact of disinformation, especially for the politics one for today. So because Meiyu is kind of a chatbot to dealing with like a private group rumors and disinformations in Taiwan. So by a closer angle, actually, I get a lot of different type or category of the disinformations. So the very first one, which obviously currently the generative AI is getting more capable. So those very capable AI could generate like not only the text contents, but also image or videos. So back forward to 2024 presidency election in Taiwan, there's an AI debater filter on TikTok, which allows random user to play as Lightning. So you can use Lightning's face, you can use its voice, and you could do whatever you want. It's still on TikTok, but yesterday I checked on TikTok, it's still not removing. Well, so that's the big concern. And the second one, which Meiyu has dealing with for a long time, is misleading narratives. So there's a lot of different narratives, but based on some of the like a very famous US-Taiwan relationship. Like for example, like US plans to destroy Taiwan, and then on the other hand, like for China, they will say China is going to help Taiwan anyway because Liang Ai right? So yeah, this kind of misleading narratives has been built in Taiwan for a long time. And based on that, there's coordinated behaviors. So there's significant portion of the accounts on Facebook, on PTT, which is Taiwan's Reddit maybe, and on YouTube and TikTok have been recognized as PRC state affiliated. Those accounts that will try to push the narratives, and these narratives will neutralize random person in Taiwan. So for example, if you like always hearing such narratives like the US conspiracies, so that naturally you will become one of the coordinators for PRC conflicts. Then you will start saying naturally you believe that US will plan to destroy Taiwan. Yeah. So briefly, with misinformation types, then I want to introduce a little bit Meiyu. So as I mentioned, Meiyu is byproduct from one of GNV's projects, GNV. Yeah. So like originally, because myself, I live in Hong Kong for 5 years and live in Europe for another like 4 to 5 years, and right now I am in California. Anyways, I live not in Taiwan for a long time, so I getting a message from Line, which is kind of like Taiwan's WhatsApp. Like most of people in Taiwan that use Line to contact their family and friends. Then I found like there's one day in the end of 2018 that I found there's a lot of misinformation happens in one day. Like I getting 500 messages, but most of them is about, for example, false science. Like they will tell you if you eat a lot of onions, they cure your cancer, for example. Yeah, this really happened, and I asked my American friends, they say so as well.
Wow.
Yeah, yes. And also there's some other, I think is more concerning politics rumors. Especially by the time Taiwan is trying to pass the gay marriage like legally. So there's a lot of very weird narratives. And I was thinking like for all of this message, actually, I can Google it for you. So what I'm doing is that I create a solution. It's only for myself. I kind of like Google it for you. So if my parents send me a message and try to Google it, if there's like nothing wrong, and maybe it will not be triggered. But if it's something wrong or it actually has been proven correct, then maybe it will tell you that this is true, this is false. And because I using it like privately, so I didn't really tell Kofax I using the API sometimes. So they don't know, but there's like a few nights it's become very popular because it turns out it's not only me, but many other people actually suffering such a phenomenon that they are getting the misinformation from their friends and families. So that's Kofax noticed that their API has been using. So I will visually tell them that I'm so sorry because I kind of like observing their networking and using their API directly. And they are like all kind people, kind citizens. So they're very nice. They say, yeah, we can work together. So we work for a long time. And Meiyu or other fact-checking chatbot actually make a lot of impact in Taiwan society or community. I believe and based on data, there's more 1 million users ever heard of or use this kind of chatbot service ever, and 40% of them, I believe, then use in daily basis. Why is that I believe? Because currently in Taiwan, there's not only one chatbot. There's Kofax, Meiyu, and the other, which is sponsored by Micro, which is 防诈达人. So there's like roughly three. So the feature for Meiyu is quite simple. As you can see, the GIF. It's kind of like it checking your message in real time. So do the real time fact checking and the user friendly. And it's especially for private group chat. Why I said that is because I think most hard part for the people to recognize that this information is if they kind of like without self-awareness, right? So if you don't Google it, even though you can like have another chatbot or another 100 chatbot on some place, you will not ask them. So if somebody can plug this kind of chatbot for you in your group, that will be very helpful. You know, like during COVID, there's sometimes I believe there's like a whole worldwide fact-checking organization combined together and they create a chatbot for debunking the COVID-19 vaccines rumors. And this chatbot is happening on WhatsApp. However, it doesn't work like I knew it because it's a single chatbot. And on WhatsApp, it's not able that you plug a chatbot into your group. So let's say if you originally you can dump the information you're receiving, you're going to Google it. Otherwise, you will not Google it. And don't say that you were going to ask a chatbot on WhatsApp. It's just hard. So actually, Meiyu is not only working in Taiwan as Ipa just mentioned. There's a Thailand Kofax, which is not plural, like Kofax, not Kofax. Meiyu also have another version in Thailand as well, because Thailand people also use Line a lot. So in Thailand, Meiyu have another name is Melody, which is a lady knows everything. Those are ladies. I like ladies, you know. Yeah, so Melody work with Kofax in Thailand. So I want to go to next page. Okay, since like I kind of like this order, so I sort of page here. But yeah, it should be mentioned before. I want to mention the challenge of the disinformation, which everybody noticed that is that this information could be spreading very rapidly on social media, and it will also be amplified by social media algorithms. And also it erodes the trust for people and undermines the face of the media. And also, you will feel it's like getting harder and harder to persuade a person who owns a different opinion from you. So it also creates echo chambers and divided communities. And also for real world, as I just mentioned, it could not only causing violence, probably, and also health risk, because if you always believe in that you eat enough onions, you can be healthy, it could be risk. And also, of course, the election manipulations. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why the page is messed up, but let's go to the next page. So I want to introduce a little bit Meiyu's partnership. Meiyu is not like getting the success. It actually based on different data sources. So the most kudos to CoFact. CoFact, as mentioned, there are a bunch of volunteers who work daily as human beings to check the rumor has been reported in line, which is a closure community in Taiwan. Yeah, so they kind of like working very responsive. It's because as an individual on CoFact, they have a form which allows you to briefly Google something and put a link as a reference. And you can say this is true or false by your own opinions, right? So this is tricky. I mentioned this. So we do have other like professional journalists gathering together. They call TFC, Taiwan Fact Check Center, Taiwanese. So those journalists, they are professionals. They kind of like dig into the event, particular disinformation very deep and very deeply. They can ask like two parties, so everybody involved into the event and trying to figure out the fact. So the pro and cons obviously is that their fact checking is roughly and very detailed. However, it takes time, so it's not responsive. And we do have another organization, which is also, I do believe that probably is nonprofit, is Michael Pen. Michael Pen in Taiwanese is like, you don't like anymore. Like, don't ship to anymore. Yeah, so Michael Pen kind of like balance the speed and quality. They are like quick enough and quality is good enough. I think it's good. Instead of working with the fact checking organizations, Meiyu also work with the government department. For example, in Taiwan, its police department, 165, is especially for prevent you from scam and fraudster. So for those disinformations, it's kind of like long-term hurt. Like if you believe in it, you're probably eating onion the whole life. But it's okay. It's not like you will be bad tomorrow. But if you getting scammed, it's like you losing money tomorrow. Right? So it's different. Yeah. So I want to mention is that either Meiyu or Melody, we combine together those organizations. We can combine the resources and the expertise, and also accelerates the innovations and also enhances the capabilities for those organizations. However, it also facing the challenges. Obviously, like by day one, actually there's conspiracy about Meiyu saying, yeah, you are getting the funding from somewhere, probably China, probably US, a huge funding. However, I just built this service in one night because it's kind of like glue. Like I glue everything together, just like integrate with one API and that's it, right? But people start to concern about their data privacy. I think it's quite reasonable because you kind of like feel that your message has been listening by some services. I think it's reasonable. So I was, or maybe it was trying to explain, actually we didn't collecting any PII for you because line is not allow us to do so. That we're getting a message, but we don't know who said that, but we can like response to you. So the second challenge is that the conflicting interests. So obviously the conflicting interests is externally and internally. Externally is obviously blocking those coordinators, which so-called Wang Jun attack. So I think that makes sense. But internally, the founding itself. Sorry, I'm not on page 4. Previous page. Oh. So internally, it also get conflicts between the fact-checking organizations. So fact-check is a tricky area that the founding should be very considerate of getting. You cannot be found by government, like imagine like China's media, right? If China's media started doing some fact checking, would you believe in that? I think it's hard, right? It's just hard. So funding is hard. Maybe itself is for free. And I believe it will be for free forever because it's fact checking. It should be unbiased. So either a government or a company trying to give you money, it sounds like not okay. So also for those fact checking organizations. So fact checking organizations actually then provide such of the research and the investigation work with government to provide some insight. It's not like also government give you money and you do the fact checking for them. It's not okay, but insights is okay. But for co-fact, which is the major and the most long time supporter for Meiyu data source, I feel hard to provide any feedback to the community. Let's say Meiyu itself is free, and the co-fact is like gathering volunteers. You cannot ask volunteers to say, yeah, you do the like 10 fact checking a day, and I give you $100. It just sounds weird too. So well, this is credibility issues happen like all the time, and so you hear the introduction. I'm pursuing in my MBAs because I think I don't know the answer. I don't know how to like make this work by the time. So it's good. Yeah, so for a closer observations takeaways today, as a Civic Technology founder, one of them, I want to say, the data protection should be extremely important because our Civic Technology, it could very possibly, either it's popular or not, it will gather users' data anyway, especially for citizens. So probably you getting users' PI and one day you has been hacked. So data protection will be important, and you've got to implement robust security measures and transparency in any way. And also the second one, which is relatively, I have less experience, is the stakeholder engagement. I think Zero could be like more experienced than me because I'm just an individual. I live overseas. I don't even attend any like physical activity that Zero has raised, but they make impacts because co-facts, so they trigger maybe as a byproduct to serve a lot of people. I think that's good. So I also mentioned stakeholder engagement would be extremely important. Just like we involve citizens to design and the implementation processes, I think like together everybody do the collaboration together, we can figure out a better way to make something that I mentioned not working work, which I believe. And very last point is sustainable funding. I still trying to figure this out, but I do believe our Civic if you're trying to think it deeper or gather more collaboration thoughts there, we can develop a diverse revenue streams for long-term viability. So that's my takeaway today. Back to Ken.
Thank you, Carol, for sharing on the development impact and challenges that Auntie Meiyu has faced, and really that are crucial in fighting against misinformation. It's clear that technology can be a powerful tool for protecting the truth and safeguarding democracy. So now we'll turn to June Lin. She is a senior program manager for Asia Pacific programs at the National Global Taiwan Institute, overseeing the Institute's Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Asia Pacific regional program, which has liberal influence. In 2016, Ms. Lin moved to the United States and joined the Carlson Association of Public Affairs as a policy expert focusing on Taiwan relations. Before joining NDI, she worked at Freedom House and the International Public Institute, focusing on supporting civil society actors in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Uyghur communities. In her personal capacity, Ms. Lin also serves as the board secretary of the Hong Kong Democracy Council and as an advisor to Double Lab. So June, all of you.
I know we're a little bit over time and I want to leave us enough time for discussion, so I'll try to keep my remark very short. All of my great fellow panelists has covered a lot of the technical issue about this topic. So as someone, as Ben alluded to, I'm from Taiwan. I was an activist in the Sunflower Movement. In 2016, I moved to the United States, and now I'm working at NDI on international democracy assistance work. So today I do want to approach this issue more as someone who was a member of Taiwanese civil society and now aiming to utilize Taiwan's experience to promote democracy worldwide. So on Taiwan Civic Tech leadership, one of the work that NDI has done along with my colleague Amanda sitting in the crowd here, a lot of the things that we have been trying to do is exactly what Ipa was saying. So how can Taiwan move from here with all these success, achievement from the civil society, and what does that have to do with the world? So that is a question that we constantly ask ourselves when doing program in Taiwan. So kind of like wrapping up what some of my fellow panelists have shared. I personally think one of the reasons that Taiwan civic tech communities enjoyed so much success, not only for the development of themselves in the civil society, but also making concrete changes on policy level, on societal issues, mainly because of the two very important characteristics of the civic tech community. One of it, as Ipa alluded to, the development of GovZero communities specifically were intertwined with a lot of the Taiwanese democracy movement, including the Taiwanese Sunflower Movement, including a lot of societal issues like what both Richard and Ipa mentioned, disclosing and promoting transparency in non-political donation. I was a college student using that service, and I was like, I still remember it was like in the middle of the night, I was like, oh my God, I'm contributing to Taiwanese democracy with GovZero project. So that was very cool. And I think due to that history and that bond with the Taiwanese civil society, the civic tech development and the development of the community, but also, as Richard mentioned, digital democracy, digital governance, it has been a approach that's been highly integrated into all the aspects of civil society works in Taiwan, but also governmental work as well. So I think one of the great success of Taiwanese civic tech community is really its relationship and its culture of cross-sector collaboration between engineers, between activists, between government stakeholders, and even other issue stakeholders, where we've seen a lot of success, particularly on the governance and policy level, as Richard introduced in the following year of the rise of GovZero and other communities and civic tech organization. Taiwan as a country has integrated a lot of new practice in terms of open and digital governance into their infrastructure and governance framework. The second characteristic I want to mention is really the intersectionality of civic tech with other issues. As mentioned by panelists, civic tech in Taiwan's context was applied in so many different issues, from governance issue, from transparency issue, to even disaster relief. For example, during earthquakes, civic tech communities also help mapping out where the disaster is taking place to support some of the rescue mission. This is not only applied within Taiwan's context, but I remember in 2015 when Nepal had a big earthquake, Taiwanese civic tech community was also doing a lot of digitized work to support disaster relief. And as Richard mentioned, now there has been a presidential hackathon where civic tech community and civil society interacts directly with executive yuan to give suggestions, share issue of concerns. And also, as alluded to in the previous presentation, budget openness, budget visualization, disclosure of political spending, or even during the pandemic, the mask map that civic tech community developed. I think these are all really great successes that not only support other issues development and other movement, democracy issues, government issues, but also it urges Taiwan stakeholder, governmental and civil society stakeholder to keep this creative, open source, open data culture in mind and keep this collaborative notion in mind when they're doing a lot of their project and innovation. And I think that is really the spirit that's really worth learning from Taiwan, not only how they've done it, not only how the infrastructure work, how the convening work, but also how this open source, open data culture has rooted in Taiwanese citizens, government, private sectors, concepts of collaboration and project development, which really contributed to a lot of opportunity for reform, for innovation afterwards. So I believe these are the two very important characteristics and successes out of the Taiwan Civic Tech community. And under NDI's work, as I said, we not only want to support Taiwan for Taiwan's sake, but we also want to help other countries in the Asia Pacific region, but also international stakeholders to learn from Taiwan's successes and story, and hopefully to see what can be applicable, what can be scalable, to support democracy in other region or other countries. So for example, one of the key issues where we've been supporting Taiwan to engage in the Asia Pacific region is the Mandarin Chinese disinformation issue. For example, in the past 2 years, we have been collaborating with a lot of Taiwanese civic tech organization, fact-checking organization, disinformation research group on how Mandarin Chinese disinformation travels in country that has Chinese diaspora or large Mandarin Chinese speaking population. So for example, under this stream of work, we've engaged experts from Australia. We talked to ASPI, Asia Strategic Policy Institute, about how Chinese government-backed and Chinese disinformation has been manipulating the international market in Australia and also weakening the Democratic Institute in Australia. We also got in touch with Research Institute in Malaysia to look at how Mandarin Chinese disinformation has affected Malaysia's elections through their Chinese diaspora population within Malaysia. We also talked to experts in Singapore, and we're now looking at how those disinformation travel in Indonesia, Philippines, and other countries. So under this stream of work, we've noticed and hear a lot of suggestions from experts and civil society from other Asia Pacific countries that these type of collaboration and coordination is so valuable because, first of all, Taiwan is at the forefront of receiving Chinese Mandarin disinformation, though the context, the political development, the political context and geopolitical context is very different from other Asian countries. But as shared by other panelists, the framework of identifying disinformation, the approach of collaborating with government and others, actors from other sectors, how to work with international community on that, I believe Taiwan has a lot of experience to offer. So that's something that NDI is really focusing on in the Asia Pacific region. Secondly, we really want to support Taiwan to continue to contribute to global initiative and global issues arise from the development of technology. So, for example, AI issues, digital governance issue, or even COVID disinformation or debunking disinformation around the invasion of Ukraine. Taiwanese civic tech community has contributed a lot in all of these global issues. And we see that Taiwan can continue to do that. So that's also one of our major focus is to support Taiwan integrate their lessons learned, their success to the global community, especially issues that's faced by all of the democratic countries. Thirdly, we do see a great capacity of Taiwanese civic tech community to support countries with civic tech community that's less developed or facing challenge such as wide digital divide or less accessibility to digital tools in Asia Pacific country. For example, under our program, we supported a lot of training for Southeast Asian countries to make sure digital innovation, digital tools, or even some of the digital governance framework are accessible to their people, to the civil society. We also supported GovZero to develop a civic tech community handbook. Actually, because of all these great successes and learning from the Taiwanese civic tech community, we thought it would be great to put together a case study of how Taiwan got to this point but also support other countries in similar contexts such as South Korea and Japan to also build up their civic tech community. So as Richard mentioned, there has been initiatives such as Face the Ocean Hackathon. Unfortunately, this year, because of typhoon, we couldn't send folks there, but this has been something that we've been supporting to work with Code for Korea, Code for Japan, focus on how to work with the democratic government better to really promote these innovations. So just wrapping that up really quickly, flagging a few things, though I think I'm preaching to the choir here for international stakeholders who's really eager to collaborate with Taiwanese civic tech communities and also for our fellow Taiwanese civic tech communities who want to further promote their work. I think one of the key things is to understand that while Taiwan's digital solution could be applicable to other contexts, but international stakeholders need to help Taiwanese to distill the democracy lessons that we learn from our history and development. I think one thing I joke about a lot of the times is that as Taiwanese, we often take it for granted of a lot of the democracy initiatives, habit, culture of Taiwan, but now as someone working on Asia Pacific democracy in the Asia Pacific region, I can see that a lot of the things we take it for granted could be so helpful for other countries. So I think helping Taiwan to build up their capacity to support other countries' actors that could still benefit from civic tech development, digital democracy, digital governance, that's something that we're really looking forward to do. And also help Taiwanese civic tech community to market their service and their work to the broader global community. I think that's very important as well. For example, in NDI's upcoming program, we're looking into supporting parliament monitoring initiatives with digital solutions with the help from civic tech community, how to scrape data, how to do advocacy to make sure that your government's data could be analyzed and open to the public to promote transparency, open government, and work with multilateral institutes or initiatives such as OGP or other mechanisms to promote that lessons learned. That's something that's very important. And thirdly, and last but not least, I think continue to support Taiwan to join the global discourse and discussion on global digital issues. That is something that's very important. As a lot of you know, it's kind of difficult for Taiwanese to attend international events in certain cases. For example, last year, we tried to bring a lot of Taiwanese civic tech activists and experts to the Global Internet Governance Forum, but because Internet Governance Forum adopts the UN system, which does not recognize Taiwanese passport holder. So Taiwanese actor was forced to be excluded from this very important conversation about global internet governance. And for some of you who's been looking at this issue, you probably know that PRC is trying to push for kind of like a state model of international government swaying international stakeholder away from the multi-stakeholder model, which is currently adopted. So this is all to say that Taiwan's experience, specifically in the civic tech realm, could contribute to so many of not only the Asia Pacific region, but global issues that's currently being concerned by multiple countries and global stakeholders, and continue to support such as our great panelists today to participate and join these global convening and decision-making forum. I think that's critical and beneficial both to Taiwan, Asia, but also to the world. So I'm gonna pause there and thank you again for your time today, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Judy, for such a great talk on Taiwan's regional role and how its experiences can inform global strategies to counter authoritarian influence. I really like your comment about the intersection of civic tech, about how it touches governance, transparency, and most recently the disaster relief. So a big thank you to all of our speakers for really such insightful presentations. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to forego some of my own questions to open it up to the audience. So if anybody has a question, please raise your hand and start with.
Thanks, sir. Thank you guys so much. That was fantastic and really, really interesting and timely. I want to touch on something that I think you all kind of touched on to a certain degree, which is the role of the Taiwanese government. You know, so many countries around the world are trying to figure out how to deal with these new threats, disinformation, with how to monitor the internet. Taiwan seems one of the leaders in the fact that the government didn't really take the lead. It was the civil tech. And I'm interested, you know, this seems like such a benefit for Taiwan. It's such a great thing for the Taiwanese government. Are there things that the Taiwanese government can do to kind of strengthen the civil society, this civil approach here? Are there ways it can safeguard this ecosystem and continue to sort of strengthen it? Or, you know, are there ways it should have just sort of taken it off? You know, you've mentioned that there's some ethical concerns with the government providing funding or getting involved with this. What can the government do to maintain the integrity of this and strengthen it while sort of keeping it with its integrity? That's great.
Well, I can just offer some reflections on this because I've often asked this myself. What can Taiwan's government do? The civic tech space, rooted in social movements, often runs into what John Postel refers to as nerd fatalism, which is just the contradictory forces of having a leaderless, horizontal social movement that wants to include as many people as possible in decision making, but running into the realities of governance, hierarchy, formal bureaucracies. So that tension and conflict, I can see it just being permanently there as we kind of ask ourselves, how can government evolve, co-evolve with civil society? What government, well, from what I saw, the successes of Taiwan, a major part of that is agreement and enthusiasm from the government side to have some kind of a binding mechanism to respond to what's being generated on Taiwan. I think at the time there was a 7-day agreement that anything deliberated and passed on Taiwan would have to have some government response as to either why is it not feasible at this time, what conditions would it be feasible, or if it is feasible, lead to legislative action. That perhaps social contract in the civic tech space did not last forever. And what I saw is that with new iterations of the legislative event, not everyone will have that same prioritization to include civic tech tools in the democracy process. And from what I read, the 2016 legislative event by that time or that point onwards did not include any of the priorities that Taiwan had generated as part of its legislative agenda. So from the government side, one thing that could be done is to get back into that conversation of sincere kind of embedding these civic tech tools into the decision-making process. That's what the participation officers program would ideally address, is to build from the ground up this new civic tech-oriented culture within all government and ministries, not just as a tech-only approach, but really more of a public participation in decision-making approach. And then civic tech is just one of the angles for that. So in my view, without that government support of some kind of a binding or responsiveness, that there's a commitment to respond to what's being generated, I do find it difficult for civic tech and government to breach these limitations or democratic ceilings that we saw previous to civic tech.
So this question, it's a dilemma because like a participation officer in Taiwan, I think it's under the umbrella of the openness as a buzzword during the previous presidency. So when after the Sunflower movement, openness, transparency became a buzzword for votes. I will say that. So everyone, including president, including different parties, they embrace this openness, open data, open government. We don't know these openness is true because you have to see it in details. Is it lasting? Is it joint? Is it sustained? And the Taiwan, and as far as I know, the participation office, because I work for government agency before, so I know that it's not really that working as it started. So so the support from government to civic tech society, it is a dilemma of the movement, social movement and government. So we try to be independent from budgeting, because I'm the organizer for hackathon for like 6 years in the initial years, and now I'm still in the organization, the task force of GovZero community. So we set a standard that we don't receive governmental budget, but we support presidential hackathon as organizers, as judges. We collaborate to each other because we don't want to like take sides. We still want to be the nonpartisan of civil society. So I think that is the dilemma of every social movement, because some social movement receive budgets, do projects for the government, but they sometimes lose attitude. And of course, we are a decentralized or multi-center. It's not really decentralized as everybody is decentralized. We have different groups. So we have to decide together. So sometimes like GovZero Summit that is held 2 years, every 2 years, they receive some of the money from government, but that is a collaboration with some officers who will come and they will sign a paper that is a course for public servants. So it's a collaboration project, but basically, so we struggle for sustainability. So if there's a funding possibility from international organizations that you want to learn from civic tech methodology, I would say it's a methodology, and to iterate your democracy or learn to like bring it to Southeast Asia, we're welcome. So we're looking for support from civil society internationally to build a solid. It is a grassroots movement, so we want to stay like that. Keep the spirit going. Hope that answers your question.
So based on like previous assumptions or discussions, that I want to share a little bit experience from Meiyu. So like personally, I would say I think service could be case by case, but mostly because I'm dealing with the fact checking, I would say like very confidently it can be like getting the budget from governments. So there's two experience. One is from Thailand government. So Thailand, that one is interesting. When like maybe very first Taiwan to enter the market. So I want to say markets because, you know, like by 2020, I think that's the benefit issue, you know. I was thinking maybe it could be commercial. So it has been acquired by a commercial company. I think one reason it could be commercial is because if the product itself is biased, then nobody will going to use it. So concern of that, as a commercial company, they will be very careful to getting where the funding is. And also trying to figure out a way to be self sufficient, right? So I think there will be like solid for this service that we prove ourselves that we have business model, we serve our service, so we don't need anybody's fund. So that's the very first thought. That's why I'm accepting the offer that acquired by a company. And when enter into Thailand's market, there's experience as Thailand's know your family. You know, like when we trying to enter the market, they say, oh, wait a minute. So we want your fact checking service that when somebody insulting the loyal family, then you send a warning to them, say, yeah, you go to jail. That's the, yeah, we didn't take it. I say the user who sent in some of the message probably is not their like opinion. They just are trying to refer this message to some others. So they are kind of like the victims, right? So like in the end, like getting this reason and we enter into the market. And also in Taiwan, like from time to time, the Taiwan government quite is like very open-minded, I think. Especially for current party, like who's on like running the government. But there's still like several times they were trying to contact me and saying, yeah, could you please try to promote some of the fact checking, especially for news, which is not like for them. Yeah, so like those times has been rejected, but as Infa just mentioned, we should be independent as Civic Technology. And I think this independence should be remained by some democratic ways. For example, like many people come together and make decision together, so that no one as one person can make decision for this service. So that's one of the experience. And also, I think for transparency, there's some more concern because lately I work for the US Taiwan Watch's hackathon, and we are trying to think about if there's war happen in Taiwan, how can we like trigger some of the movement or actions immediately, like between US and Taiwan. But thinking about it, and we found actually a lot of information is confidential. So it is confidential and should be confidential forever. So that transparency is impossible. So I would say it's case by case. It really depends what kind of issue you are dealing with.
Just add super quickly that I think the tension that they all mentioned is really the driver of a democracy society. So I think finding a way to balance that tension and keep the drive is really important. I think as a grant making organization, I do think grant making is a great alternative between keeping independence while promoting financial sustainability. So that's what I'll.
Thank you all for your answers for that. We're out of time, but I think I'm gonna get one more question, so if anyone.
Yeah. That's a press, keep pressing it down. So I just wanted to ask very quickly, since we don't know, about civic tech in the United States, which you touched upon. US Taiwan Watch came out of GoZero, is organized hackathons. There's a civic tech community in DC that I've been attending. They are interested and active. Is there any from the grassroots level, from GoZero, any interest in sustainable connections with US civic tech? And is there any kind of planning from the grant making organizations about involving civic tech in Taiwan, US?
Everyone is looking at me. Bay Area because my husband he's also the co-founder of GovZero. So we started connecting with people from all around the world working on civic tech since 2012. Oh, it's 12 years ago. So recent years we met a group of people from Bay Area. They're talking to the city and plurality. They're basing in Bay Area. They also like to do something for using AI technology for democracy and for generally good. So a bunch of them flew to Taiwan in May for the GovZero summit, and I met them in Taiwan. And so I met them earlier this last month in Bay Area, and I asked them, "Wow, I saw you all in Taiwan. So there are a larger community in Bay Area." They say, "No, that's all we have, and all flew to Taiwan because." The discussion and talking about nerd politics, that was the keynote in May. And they're nerd from Bay Area, the Silicon Valley, and they're doing tech. So they're not a lot of people, but they're connecting to each other in Bay Area. So we're trying to and Paulus, the name of the founder, we have same age kids, so we exchange kids. So we're trying to connect with people doing civic tech in Bay Area to see if there's any new implement from AI to technology, because we have civic tech, but it's an old concept. It's already 12 years old. It's going to be teenage now. So we're looking for civic AI for how to regulate it, how to use it in deliberation, how to automate the process of data processing, how to collect correct data for civil society, for Mandarin, because we might be flooded in simplified content, Chinese content through AI, and they generate stories to educate, to interact with our kids. So we want to innovate ourselves into new, of course, new civic tech community here, maybe in DC and in Bay Area, and some people participate very vibrantly in Bay Area Taiwanese. We have GovZero Bay Area community now. We're now neighbors or in Bay Area. So we're looking forward to mobilize, to find a way to see if there's a civic AI at least for Taiwan, because we're under constant threat of invasion, and maybe for the broader international society. Yeah, so that's what we plan to do from now. Because we just moved from Taiwan to Bay Area in July, in mid-July. So that's 2 months, and we settled everything now. So that's the next goal. So maybe we can discuss it later.
I do have a question. So I want to ask is there's like maybe several famous civic technology originally from America project maybe?
Yeah, I mean, you know about Code for America.
Yeah, but it's quite different nature. I've been to America Summit some years ago, but I think it's the civic tech definition for America and for Taiwan or for democracy is quite different. It's like PPP model and during Obama governance.
I think that's what it became. For a while, Code for America actually did have operating communities in towns and cities all around America. They were doing more like small volunteer-only initiatives, and then it became this kind of organization. And for this reason, my civic tech community in DC broke off from Code for America. Actually, Code for America dropped them, didn't allow them to even use the name Code for DC anymore. So those communities, I think, still exist in cities, but the Code for America group, has become this really unfortunate kind of model. But I still think there are communities, and it's all local stuff related to voting, environmental issues, but maybe disinformation become something they work on.
Disinformation, then I once tried to be a volunteer. So you see, I do really deep for Thailand, so I of course have the idea to have like something like very checking like Meiyu Americans. However, it's hard.
Mhm.
I think Americans will consider this is my privacy. What are you doing right now? So kind of like at the very first beginning to reject this kind of service. I would call it service, but I know it's like by Americans' nature, probably it's hard to get fact checking from some other service. And also because you're just talking, I would thinking maybe all of the successful civic tech in America become some kind of startup already. I don't know. Could be.
Just two notes on this real fast. One is I find it interesting the history of threads or conversations between civic tech groups in US and then later on globally. the Polis programming, from what I understand, comes from the Occupy Wall Street movement 2008, and trying to digitize something that occurred in person, which is I forget, it's like mic drop or something like that, but kind of passing around the mic but scaling it up digitally. And I know members of who created Polis have come to Taiwan for GovZero Summit and kind of studied Polis as a national case study. So I know there's been this kind of dialogue or exchange between both sides that have resulted in different recognitions or partnerships over the years. Now talk to the city as one of the big iterations. And the Code for America or Code for All paradigm, it's interesting to see the differences of Code for Korea, Code for Japan, and then GovZero, kind of the different civic tech and governing contexts in each country and how that's affecting what civic tech looks like. Interesting difference I found specifically with Code for Japan is that one actually does direct grants or contract with government to produce different digitization or closer to digital government outcomes rather than using a civic tech space to advance social movements or contentious politics, which is very different model from GovZero and Code for Korea, another context entirely. So just two small notes on that.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our event for today. Thank you, a big thank you to our panelists. You can check out our website, globaltaiwan.org. Our next public seminar will be next week on Taiwan civil defense. Thank you all for coming and to our online audience for joining as well.
Thank you.